Welcome to the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast, where you get straightforward, no-nonsense ideas on leadership and growth, both personally and professionally. It's brought to you by the Chief Coaching Officer of the Peak Performance Group. He's also a brilliant and successful serial entrepreneur. He's a two-time author. He's a certified executive coach. He's a sales genius. He's bald.
Hey now.
And he's your host of the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast. Buckle your chin strap. Here's your host, Coach Rick Colster.
Hey, welcome to the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast. I'm Coach Rick, your host. Remember, folks, like and subscribe below. We're available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, and YouTube video. Like and subscribe to every single episode, because you know what? You can get us on every major platform. Whatever is your favorite, we're there. I guarantee it. Today, we're going to freeform just a little bit today, folks. And thanks for turning us on again and listening. We appreciate all the likes, all the subscribers to the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast. So here we go today. Let's talk about this. Where are we going? Our core message here at the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast is about developing leaders, business leaders, community leaders, family leaders, and ultimately future leaders for our world. It took a while to get our guest on today because he is so dang busy doing just that, developing leaders around the world. You're in for a treat, folks. This guy is the creme de la creme of what he does. And he's one of the busiest people I know, and one of the toughest too. We're going to touch on that just a little bit. Now, if you've listened to the Bald Truth for any length of time, you know we've had some tough people on here. Navy SEALs, Marine Recon Raiders, boxers, pro wrestlers. Yes, I know it's fake. It's entertainment. But wrestlers are still tough. I will tell you that our guest today is absolutely the toughest of all of our guests. We may touch on that just a little bit. I'll let him talk about that. Today, the man who is joining us today, I consider one of the premier business and personal coaches in the world. And so do his clients, by the way. He's transformed so many people in his almost 25-year career. I may be giving him a little older than he really is, but I'll tell you what, folks, he's been in this coaching space for a long time, almost a quarter century, and he's transformed so many people. He's worked with the famous and not so famous and even some infamous clients, I'm pretty sure. He's the founder of Cashbox Coaching and is providing corporate and individual coaching as well as organizational development services for more than 2 decades. And I'm going to read his bio just a little bit here because it's really impressive. His life experience includes a partner for a law firm, a prosecutor, a judge, a law school faculty professor, healthcare executive, and for the past 2 decades, a premier organizational coach. He's authored numerous books and is most of all someone I have the utmost respect for and someone I consider a friend. Today, we welcome my friend, David Herdlinger, to the Bald Truth. David, welcome to the Bald Truth, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. It's a privilege to be here with you.
You know, and you are absolutely one of the most humble guys I know. I know you're sitting there going, oh, stop that shit, Rick. Just stop talking, would you? I don't want to hear this crap. And I just know, but you're one of the most humble guys out there, one of those giving people that I know. In fact, you kind of gave me my start in the business.
Emphasize the word kind of, okay? You had a giant leap before I came along.
Oh, all I had to do was open the door and you helped me kick it in, that's for sure. And today, I don't really have an agenda. Folks, I generally have an agenda on questions I want to ask our guests and all that. I just wanted to know you. You've been a part of my life since I decided to take that leap into the organizational development space, to the leadership growth space. How about a little background on how you came into the business? What got you going to go from law professor, partner in law firm, healthcare executive to now what I consider one of the best business and life coaches out there?
Well, I'm afraid this may be a cure for your podcast listeners and viewers' insomnia, but I'll give it a shot. Ever since I was in the 5th grade, I wanted to be a lawyer. That's it. I focused my youth, my college career, everything on doing that. And I did it. I believe however you want to measure it, was successful. was a senior partner in my law firm. And from there, I got involved very, very deeply in politics. And what I mean is not local politics, but on a statewide, and it's still a statewide, but a national when you're talking about senatorial campaigns, not for myself, but with people that I worked with. And it took substantially away from my law practice, and I had to have some law partners that were very, very understanding that I wasn't there putting enough money in the till, but going around doing this stuff. Well, that part of the career really broke away and led me to a life of being a lobbyist. Now, lobbying back in those days is much different than it is now.
Sure, absolutely.
Much easier, but it's yeah,
More free form, maybe?
It took a lot of time, Rick. And so I moved from being a lobbyist, or moved to being a lobbyist on a small level, until one day the former attorney general of the state of Arkansas just called me out of the blue. And he was no longer in Arkansas, he was in Georgia, and said, look, this company that I'm doing lobbying for now, they're going to offer me a very high position. I'm just contract me out, but they're going to give me a high position. And I've got some things I want to tell them that I demand if I'm going to accept it. One of them is I want to have a chief of staff, which is a position they don't have, and I want to be able to select that person. I said, yeah, okay, great. Well, I want that to be you. And
Oh, wow.
I said, Steve, that's not going to happen. I said, my wife, born and raised here in Arkansas, she isn't going to move to Cracker, Georgia. And he said, no, you don't understand. This isn't the banjo play in Georgia. This is a small drinking island with a golfing problem. And it is as close to paradise as you'll ever be. He said, I don't have time. I'm going to send you a ticket. You come down here. Now I'll speed the story up. I go down. I fall in love with the place. My wife comes down 2 weeks later. She falls in love with the place. And we're here. So I'm now lobbying for the largest privately held home health care company in the world, traveling between 180, 200,000 miles, air miles a year. But it was a different life than I'd ever had. And I enjoyed it, and it was good. And then that private company got bought out after 5 years of me being there. They've been there for a long time. And the new company talked with me and said, love to have you, love the work you're doing, but we're closing out everything in Georgia. It's just too small. You're going to need to move where we are in Maryland. I said, you can sell that one to my wife, and
really,
you can sell anything. He said, we'll give it a shot. I did. And the shot is about what I got. She just told me, have fun. This is my home now. So I said, okay, I'm not moving. And she said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I have no idea. I've never been in this place before. She says, well, just go out and practice law. I said, I don't know Georgia law. I'm not a member of the Georgia bar. It's like starting all over. I'm not even connected to the local bar here. She said, her exact words, I don't care if you polish doorknobs. We're not leaving. Well, doorknob polishing really wasn't really kind of what I wanted to do. So I looked around and again, trying to make this as quick as I can on this part of it, started a training and development company. I named it after a pretty infamous person. I called it Herdlinger Associates. and I just started. And I didn't know come here from Sikkim about it, but I could tell pretty quickly that a lot of companies needed it. So I went from there. I sold it to companies. I did most of the stuff in person with the companies that were there, made a good living, had a lot of fun. And then I had this individual, let's call him, let's call him Fred, because that was his name. It'll be easy to keep up with it.
Absolutely.
So Fred contacted me, and he was in the culinary business, had a restaurant, and wanted to see if he could hire me, not for his folks, but for him. And I said, oh, Fred, that's not how this works. This is on economy of scale, and it would really cost you a considerable amount of money for us just to do this one-on-one. And he says, well, you're starting to hurt my feelings there, David. You think I can't afford it? And I said, well, it's not a matter of, Fred, if you can afford it or not. It's just I don't know that it's worth it. He says, well, maybe the decider of that. I said, okay. So I primarily, Rick, did the same thing I was doing in the groups, but I did it with this guy. And I'd never done it before. He was my first one. And I decided he lived a ways from where I live now into the mainland. And so I just decided, I think we need to do this over the telephone. And he said, you can do this over the telephone? I said, well, we're talking now. Why couldn't we just go in and do that? I didn't know. I just thought I'd try. So we did it over the telephone. We got to our third session. Things were going great. And he says, hey, I got to ask you a question. So it's really my job to ask the questions, but that's okay. What do you got? He said, do you know blah, blah, blah? And I said, no, I'm sorry. I don't know him. He said, well, he and I, we growed up together. He said, we growed up together and he's a fine individual. He's like you. He used to be a lawyer, but he wised up and now he's in another business making tons of money. And we were having lunch together and I told him about you and he said, damn, Fred, you done hired you a coach. And so Fred asked me, is that what you are, David? Are you a coach? Yes, I am.
There you go. Correct answer.
Honest to God, I didn't even know. I couldn't wait to get off the phone and go check and see, could I qualify to be one? Do I have to be trained?
What's a coach?
And so I just, bottom line, I did it backwards. I called the people that did my business cards and said, put the word coach under that, and then began to go to coaching schools and learn how to be a damn coach.
Well, think about that.
That's what I did.
know that this is 20 plus years ago, right?
Yeah.
The profession of coaching now, in today's market, you and I both know, you can throw a rock at a Chamber of Commerce meeting and hit 10 coaches all at the same time.
Yeah.
But there was no such thing as a coach. We didn't know the coach was a guy who made you run laps.
You are so right with your history. It was predominant in Australia. They were making money and doing stuff. By the time it got over here to us, no offense to these good liberal people, but it was tree hugging and Birkenstocks and rent a friend. And they were charging, $50 a session. I couldn't make a living doing that. And
it's not even what a cheap therapist charges.
There you go. But what I was lucky enough to do, I melded it with the training I was doing. And so I've always said, Rick, I'm sure you've heard me say this before, it's kind of like the Reese's peanut butter cup. Dude did not invent chocolate and he did not invent peanut butter, but he found a way to put them together and made a pretty good living. Well, I didn't invent training and I didn't invent coaching, but when I put them together, it didn't look like either one. It was corporate coaching. Sure. And individual coaching. And that's where it birthed by old Fred right there.
That's great. And, my journey is kind of the same thing. And it's my first client in this business because when I left my corporate job in 2003 and just because, and I'll tell this right now, because I was traveling 180 days a year, like you were traveling that many miles. I was traveling that much. I had 2 small kids and had a boss that was, let's just say he was a little bit old school and he was from the Northeast and that whole kind of Tony Soprano mindset. And he wasn't the most pleasant guy in the world if he didn't get his way. He's nice enough if he got his way, but when you push back, you ask him questions, it's do it my way or get out of here, my way or the highway. And it's the same. That's not how I was raised to lead. And so I basically told him to take a flying leap off a very tall building and quit my corporate job. And like you said, I don't know what I'm going to do. My wife looked at me and said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then we found this actually the same group to do training. And so that opens the door right now. Okay. So that opens a fun door for me.
Let's walk
You'd already been doing this corporate coaching, training, whatever we called it at that time, for a little bit of time. You kind of got your chops, you figured it out. And then here comes me. This is how we met, my perspective on how we met. I was referenced to you to say, hey, call this guy David. He'll talk to you about what this business is all about. Call up some guy, David, got a voicemail. Hey, David, Rick, I'm really interested in this business and I'm kind of curious. If you call me back, I appreciate it. And I guess you picked the phone up at some point, got this message. And what did you hear?
Well, I want to confess something I never confessed to you. I used to get several of those phone calls from that company because that's who provided back in the day the intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew what I was there to do was to give them a reference and then check to see if maybe you were a guy that would fit there. I don't know how much self-awareness you had back then. I know you have a lot of it now. I know you very well. But what I noticed from you were two things. Number one, you were very, very bold. You spoke your mind. There wasn't any BS. I knew that you had a BS meter there, and I was just going to have to tell you straight. But what really attracted me, it's so ironic we're doing this today. You had a damn radio voice. You had a voice, and back at that time, I'm doing.
They say I have a face for radio too.
No, quit that. I didn't see the face. I didn't Google you on the internet. It was this presence and this voice. And for the first time, I've never confessed this to you. For the first time, I contemplated trying to poach you from them and say, forget them. I can train you. I've got a deal here. I want you here. And I said, I can't. I can't. So I gave you the full skinny. I gave you the good and the bad that I thought that was
yes,
with
you
it.
did.
I told you that I didn't do it exactly the way that they do it, but that's how I started, and we went from there. If you want me to carry on, here was the thing. Holy sweet mother of baby Jesus. They had asked me if I do some of their trainings, the people that actually had signed up for this and come do it was me and another trainer. And I said, well, yeah, okay. And they were like a week long.
Sure.
So I'm going there to do, this may have been, I don't know, my third or fourth time I'd ever done it. And I walk in there and there's this giant that walks in the room. Oh, everybody, look at him, people. And here comes you. And I don't know that's you yet. We hadn't done the introductions, but I know, man, this is a guy that stomp a mud hole in my backside if he wanted to.
Come on now. Wait a minute. I'm gonna back up the story a second.
That was the look.
Okay.
And so here you come, and wouldn't I know it? Front row, this guy, he's right there to my left on the stage. And I think he's going to be in my face the whole time. As soon as I heard that voice, I remembered who you were.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to poach right there. And so the whole training there, I have to admit, I wasn't going to poach you, but I was going to get to know you a lot better. I was going to baby. I was going to do whatever I could to make sure that you stayed in this organization and we had contact. And so, like you said, that was a long time ago.
Almost 19 years ago. So here's my side on this.
Okay.
Same conversation. You called me back and said, thanks. I gave me the skinny. There was no bullshit about it. It was straightforward, no nonsense. All right, I'm interested. So I have to go up and I have to fly to the up northeast where that corporation was based. And there's some guy, some short little guy walking around getting coffee. And I'm in a big 3-piece suit because I think I'm all fancy and stuff. And I said, hi. Oh, you have a little shirt, said Herdlinger. So I said, hey, do you know David Herdlinger? He goes, I am him. I said, oh, great. I'm Rick. Oh, hi. That was it. 10-second introduction. I walked away. That was it. And then a couple months later, I decided to come on board. Then we met again. So that was where I already knew who you were. But I love the story. I didn't know that's what got you were trying to poach me. That's great.
I never even thought of it before, Rick. That's how unique you were in my life to this thing. And I knew it was wrong, but I also knew what I wanted.
But you know what? That lends a lot to the guy who you are, the man of integrity that I know you to be. So you could have poached me in a heartbeat because I was free pickings. I was like fresh fruit right here. I was fresh meat on the vine. And I would have done whatever it taken to make a living for my family. And, 20 years later, here we are. But it says it's a testament to the character and which goes back to the business that you've built, the leadership development that you built. One of the things I know that you've done is you worked with some hospitals because you were a healthcare executive. You worked with this hospital and you wrote a book about it. What was the title of the book again? Remind me.
Oh, Healing a Hospital.
Healing a Hospital. So folks, if you're listening and you want to see how you can transform an organization, David, I'm going to let him tell the story, but the book is called Healing a Hospital. I think it's probably available on Amazon or someplace or on your website, and we'll get all that information in a little bit. What did you do for that? Is it South Georgia healthcare system?
Yeah, Southeast Georgia healthcare system.
Southeast Georgia, okay.
Georgia. And in St. Mary's, Camden County, they had two campuses.
Okay.
What did I do for them? I met with the CEO, the vice chairman of the board, and the HR vice president for lunch. And it was a sales meeting, if you will, that was actually called for by the vice chairman of the board. And it was a relatively new CEO that had come in, not even in from that area. And we're there and we're having lunch. And it was like, for all four of us, it just happened. And we cut the deal for me to work with them before dessert ever came for lunch. It was just that good.
Don't you love it when a deal comes together?
They didn't ask about price. They didn't ask about process. They just asked the questions that were relevant to where they wanted to go. And so I had all three of the levels there, the lead executive, the board guy, and the one that would administer this and set up the meetings and those kind of things. And so when we left there, the CEO says to the HR VP, you just work with him, set it up, I'll sign it, we'll get going. That was 18 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still a client.
That's awesome.
And I've gone through now 3 CEOs that are there. And really what we do, here's the way I describe it, Rick. I do executive coaching for their leadership individuals in a training and development atmosphere. So in coaching, as you know, it's all with the client and I'm getting them to do this, and it's not mentoring and I'm not telling them how to do something, but I'm incorporating all the stuff that I've learned over the years and got from other hospitals and do that and feeding that to them. And now they can have it or reject it. It doesn't matter, but it's not just tell me how you want to spend our time together today.
Okay.
The magic about this, and this is why this has been so successful, is that as the new CEO, they just got hired a month ago here, said, he says, oh my God, there's no one in the world that knows more about this hospital than you. You know all the leaders, you know their business, you know their personal, you know their children. I mean, what a resource. And I said, your point? He said, well, my point is, I want you to stay on. And so
I remember that when I was in the restaurant business and I opened 17 restaurants over the course of 13 years. That's not that big a deal. I kept getting fired from jobs. That's what happened. So I got to be good at it. But you always, when new owners would come into town and they would pick a location, it was probably an old restaurant before, they're going to revitalize it, redo it. They would come in. There was always that one guy that was there that had worked there before, who had been, worked in the kitchen or been a bartender or worked somewhere in the restaurant, assistant to the assistant manager, but he's just showed up all the time. It was Paul. I call him Paul because that was his name. And Paul knew where the light switches were. He knew why the doors stuck. He knew that you had to tap this here, that if you went around this way, it was easier. And he understood where everything was. So when the new owners would show up, they go, I don't know where anything is. He would be on the doorstep waiting. And he'd go, oh, here's the breaker for this. Here's the switch for this. Here's how the door works. You got to tap the door here to open up the cooler. They go, oh man, you got to come on board. And there's always that. It was every restaurant I had, there was always that guy. And he always showed up. And we always kept him on. And that's beautiful because you know more about the organization and everything else. So
I'm
I
that
love
guy
that.
for this hospital.
And I love that because I love the healthcare space as well. I've worked in it a little bit myself, and just love because what they do is they help people, and that's what we do. We help people. But there's a story that I really want to dig into here. Now, we talked about leadership. We talked about, but a lot of stuff, how you got going in the business. The one thing that really kind of gets me is how building a business, because folks that are listening may be business owners. How do we build a business? And what would you say is the key? And then I'm going to ask you something even more fun, but what would you say is the key from, like you said, I didn't know what I was doing. I just jumped in and did it and figured it out along the way. What's the key to making a successful 20 plus year career in an industry you didn't know anything about when you started?
Well, I don't have them enumerated. I wasn't expecting that exact question. So I'm thinking there may be three things here, I'll tell you. The first one is just the premise. And that is, I learned pretty quickly the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge was learning from your mistakes, and wisdom was learning from the mistakes of others.
Got
and
it.
So I very, very quickly knew I was learning stuff, knowledge. I was making mistakes. Oh, did I make them? Correct. We won't go into that now. But I did learn to go to people who were bold enough to tell me and confess to me the mistakes they made to keep me from doing it. Now that leads me to the second point. The second point that I found out is, at least with what I'm doing here, this isn't vacuum sweepers or fuller brushes or anything like this. This is selling me. This is selling me trust, my services, a relationship. And so as a result, to call it selling, it's true. I want to perform surgery and excise their money from their account over to mine. That's kind of the end result. But it's not regular selling. And so what I found out was selling is not telling. I stopped showing up and telling them all this stuff and how it is and that kind of thing. I let them buy. Because what I discovered, and a crucial part, is that no one wants to be sold, but everyone loves to buy. Just ask Amazon. Man, I mean, they just love to buy.
I'm waiting on some stuff today.
That was the key. I changed. I stopped telling. I stopped selling. I just went in and gave them a chance to buy. And during that chance, here's the third thing. This is, for me, the magic. I didn't go there with the goal to sell them. I went there with two goals. And to this day, it's the same. I have 145 clients that I coach. And I think, although they may not have openly realized it while we were doing it, they're all the same. I had the first meeting with them, and my goal was to make a friend. And the second goal during that meeting was to be invited back. And from there, they had the opportunity to buy. If I went there trying to sell them, and that was the goal, I went home empty-handed. I did enough of that back in my early days. I just eased it back, was a whole lot more patient, and made it about relationships, make a friend, get invited back, and my practice.
See, I love that because that's I think the key, three keys for any business. So for anyone that's listening, if you're starting a business, if you're in a business and you want to grow your business, number one, learn from others' mistakes, not necessarily your own mistakes. Pay attention. Number two, let people buy. Don't try to sell them because you're pushing, nobody wants to sell, as you said. Nobody wants, but everyone wants to buy. Nobody wants to be sold. And finally, make a friend. And that's one of the things that I took all these keys from you in my business and have used them. And that's it. Be invited back. I love that. Be invited back. It's like make a friend and be invited to a party. We do. My wife and I, we were out having dinner one night, and another couple sitting across another table, and he's in the beer business. So I was having a beer. He says, "Try my beer." I'm like, "All right, cool." Try his beer. find out that they're our neighbors. They lived around the corner, about our age. We have a lot of common interests and what have you. And we've now invited them. We made a friend. And now we invited them. Now we do Bible studies together, and they come over the house, we go over their house. And that's the get invited back. I could have met him. He could have bought all my beers, because that's his business, to buy my beers, because he's in the beer business. He bought me his beer, of course. But we got invited back, and they got invited back. And that's what the key is. I just love that. So I don't want to take too much of your time, so I know you have 145 clients that are waiting on you, but you've got one story that really just kind of kickstarted you into a whole different vertical market. You mentioned the chef, who was your first one, right?
Yeah.
And now
he was actually a chef and a restaurant owner. Yeah.
But you do a lot of work with the restaurant industry now, and chefs specifically. How did that start? Other than obviously your first guy, how did that start?
Not intentional. You really want to hear the story?
Absolutely. I think it's a great story. I think everybody wants to hear, how big are David cojones to do some of the silly stuff that he does and that turned great?
It was around or over 12 years ago. And I was here in my home, and my wife at that time had her own high fashion business. And so she traveled a lot to France and to Italy and over to the UK in this business to bring goods to her store. And I was there at a period of time by myself, and she was gone. And I had some time on my hands, and I was watching a television show that had been on for several seasons. And it was a kind of a cooking competition show, well known. Matter of fact, it's still on today, going into its 20 and 21st season.
Wow.
And so I'm there and I'm watching this, and I am the jinxer. They start out with 15, 18 contestants. You get a little introduction. That's the one that's going to win. That's usually one of the first three that go out. Okay. I pick them and they're gone. A particular season, I did the same thing. And it was just a few weeks before, I'm talking about when my wife was gone, and my person made the final two. And then in that last episode, won. Wow. And I go, oh my God, maybe the jinx is gone. And so I'm looking and I'm listening, and I know these things are taped ahead of time. And so I'm wondering if this chef, because one of the prizes of this is to be a head chef at a well-known restaurant for a year. So I make a call to see if this chef is actually there and doing it. Oh, yeah. Started a couple of weeks ago, or started this week, whatever. I don't know what it was. I said, great. So I got on Delta, bought a ticket, got a reservation in Las Vegas, flew there, put my bags in my room, went over to the restaurant. Oh man, big poster of this person. It's a big deal that this person's there. I'm feeling good about that. Got my reservation. I can remember exactly where I sat, because by the way, I've gone to that restaurant since then 60 times for dinner.
Wow.
So I'm there. It's a table for two next to the wall. This server comes up. We have a little chit chat. He asked me, what brought me here? I said, to come here to eat. He said, no, I know that. I mean, what brought you to Las Vegas? I said, to come here to eat. I said, the truth is, I want to come and meet your celebrity chef. Oh, no. I said, what do you mean? Oh, no. This is her day off. You should be here tomorrow. It's Thursday. It's a Thursday, Rick. I said, no. He said, she'll be here tomorrow. I said, I won't be. I leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. This is my one night. I flew here this afternoon. I'm here tonight, and I leave at 6 in the morning. I am so sorry. That's why I don't gamble. So I ate. The food was good. I got to know the guy's name's Matthew. I still remember him to this day. It was good. It's a nice restaurant. About a month to 6 weeks after that. My wife is here. She's not gone. I said, what the hell? I'm doing it. And I'm going to go on a Friday. I fly out there just by coincidence. They don't know who I am, but I'm sitting at the very same table, very same chair. Get the very same server, Matthew.
Wow.
He recognizes me. He says, I remember you. I said, please tell me she's here. Not only is she here, she wants to meet you. I said, great.
Okay.
I'm sitting there. She comes out, and we just made the connection. It was so good because she's a celebrity at this point. People are coming there and wanting their autograph and wanting to take a picture. And the whole time she's so into this conversation that she said, I'll be there later. And the next thing I know, she's sitting in the empty seat across from me. And the connection was made.
Wow.
He was the first and wasn't the last. And I got to where I had so many on a weekly basis. I would fly out there to do a lot of celebrity chefs.
Yeah, I remember that because as you said, that kind of wears you out. And you know that the business sometimes just using the brain power wears you out a little bit. And you would tell me that was somewhat of an ordeal, good ordeal, but an ordeal to do that.
And did I eat well?
I'll bet you did. If you ever watch, folks, if you ever want to check out David Herdlinger on some of his social media, he does post. As a matter of fact, what did you tell me about a kitchen in your house? What was that you told me once?
I'll tell. Kitchens are only for resale. We don't cook. We eat out virtually every meal. And so we have a commercial kitchen in our home from the time that it was built. The ovens, the stoves, the freezers and all that, they're as clean as a newborn baby's bottom.
I think you once told me they still have the plastic on them.
They may as well have. They are only for resale.
Only for resale. That's great. Oh, man, this has been great. I know we're closing up on time. I do have a couple quick questions for you, though.
I'll try to give you quick answers.
All right. So, and I ask all my guests this, and I'm really curious as to your answers. So if you're holding a dinner party for 6 people, you being one, you get to invite 5 people. At the 5 people could be anybody in all of history, live, dead, whatever. Who do you invite and why?
Wow. I don't know that I can name 5 off the top of my head as far as the why. I know the feeling that I have. Oddly enough, my first person is someone that's alive. I'd really like to get to know him. And his name is Brian Williams, who used to be on the NBC News and then had the 11th Hour, and now he's left NBC. That is the first. I have a goal to be able to break bread with Brian Williams.
Well, I think you'll be able to do that.
It's going to happen. It is absolutely going to happen. The second person that I would like to have there at that dinner party is Chef White, who was the person that actually was responsible for mentoring and training the 17-year-old Gordon Ramsay. I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but he's been around. And Chef White was where Gordon learned to be Gordon Ramsay. Chef White literally during that training had Gordon slumped in a corner crying like a little baby because of the way that he mentored.
You wouldn't think that now, right?
No, he would not. And Chef Ramsay's knives are very sharp, but that would be the second one. Now you start getting way back to kind of, I think, the dead people, the people that are not anymore. And I would love to do this. I don't care which one. Well, yeah, I do. I don't want Judas, but I want a disciple.
Okay.
And by Jesus, I get that. I can read about him. I want to deep dive in one of those guys, and they're all guys, and find out how they found the guts to do what they did in that area. I have nothing close to that. You could relate to that. You step out on that ledge, but I how did you do it? What was it that caused you? And you can just give me any of them. Yeah, James, Peter, Paul, I don't care, except for Judas.
Except for Judas, yeah, you know where he ended, how he ended up.
Is what I want. The next one that I want is I want one of the and these people may still be alive. I want one of the children that in the early days of desegregation that went through that, had the National Guard walk with them, get into class, do all that. I want to find out, did their parents push them to that? Was it they think they were going to get some kind of note? What caused them, allowed them to do it, and how did they persevere? And what were the end results? Was it worth it? I just love to know. That was a tremendous chance for them to be taken.
Sure.
The other person who is no longer with us, probably you can relate to him also here, is General MacArthur. I mean,
very cool.
Dude, he was a leader, but he was also an actor. He knew how to press the buttons, do the words, and he put that thing together. And I just, again, I'd like to know what was his vision, because I know he intended to live longer than he lived because of the unfortunate accident. But while he was alive, where was he planning to go with this thing? And then the very, very last one that I would say in that regard, would be Thomas Jefferson. Again, I don't believe history is accurate. And I like to sit him down and have him tell me the truth about what was going on in that period of time, what he expected, and did he realize what he was doing was going to have that kind of impact on the rest of the world. I think
that's super. Yeah, and that's, I guess history is taken from the perspective of the viewer.
Yes.
Or the writer.
Yes.
At that time, and it's all perspective. Our perspective on how we met is, and that was, I love doing that because you have your perspective, and I was like, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about that.
I didn't see you walking around with the name on my shirt back in the back of the room. I guess I didn't recognize your voice. It must have been short, but I sure recognized it when you sat down in that chair.
And remember, let's not go out by the back of, let's not go back by the dumpster and have a conversation. That's a story for another day, folks. That is totally another story for another day. But David and I, we've had a lot of fun together. And I absolutely love having this conversation with you, my friend. You look great. I love the background. It's I think that's your pool in the backyard. That's your backyard. I know that. And I just am so blessed to have you as a friend, have you as a guest on today. And folks, I will tell you this. If you're listening today and you're listening closely, there were tidbits of wisdom all throughout this conversation come from this man. And if you haven't listened, go back, replay it, listen again, because you will find tidbits in there that can change your life. This man has been changing lives for the last 25 years in his coaching practice. And before that, he's got a great family. He's a wonderful man. And he's probably one of those giving individuals that I know. And I am blessed to have him as a friend and a mentor as well. So David, thank you for being on The Bald Truth.
Thank you. And may God continue to bless you and your family. Thank you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Folks, wow, this is a big one. This has been fun. I'm Coach Rick. And remember, that's the bald truth.
You've been listening to The Bald Truth with Coach Rick of the Peak Performance Group, the company that helps people and organizations reach their potential. If you're looking for a way to grow your organization, whether it's sales or strategic direction, the Peak Performance Group coaches can help you grow with their proven business acceleration process. Call them at 817-748-7425 or go to mypotentialplus.com and they'll connect you with the right coach for you. And remember to subscribe and like below. The Bold Truth Leadership Podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, and YouTube video. Hit like and subscribe to get every episode. Thanks for listening to the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast. And until next time, roll up your sleeves and get to work, and you can make things happen.
I'm Coach Rick, and that's The Bald Truth.